Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tracy Tiny House. I am sorry I have not posted in a while, but I've been dealing with some personal things. As many of you know, I was diagnosed with hypervigilance and DID. I had a long-standing stalker for almost 4 years. It's still going. I have not seen him for 4 months. I moved into the woods where I have no driveway, so if he's looking at the road or whatever, I can't see him. So I don't know if he's here or not, which is bittersweet because I don't know, so I don't see him, but I also don't know, so I don't know, right? So anyways, yada yada yada. Since we've last spoke, I've been in trauma therapy for almost a year now. My diagnosis was changed from hypervigilant to split personalities. My split personality is a direct result of my issue not being addressed and me living in a state of hypervigilance too long. That hypervigilance coping mechanism turned into full-blown personality. So in my case, so far, there's 3 plus me. I refer to them as N, C, and E. Normally, N is the dominant personality. I could say for the last year or two, I've been predominantly N and not myself. That being said, real quick, multiple personalities and split personalities are not the same. Split personalities is exactly that, where all my pieces of me have split and come undone, but I'm still the same person. My personalities are pieces of me. My underlying values, my core beliefs stay the same, whereas somebody with multiple personalities might be invaded by strangers. In regards to my personality disorder, I'm totally open and willing to talk about it more and answer questions. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to also drop those in comments below. I'm very open with it, and I'm very open to sharing my coping skills. My goal is to remain unmedicated and try to hone my personalities back in again. That aside, this video is actually about sigils. As I mentioned before, I've been working with coping mechanisms. I am Norse pagan. My family is Norse and Scottish and English. I fall very heavily and relate very much and believe very much in Norse pagan traditions. So today we are going to do something called a sigil. Comes from the word signature, and might be most commonly heard with angels and demons. For example, you might be familiar with the phrase or the golden rule that if you know a demon's name, you can control them. And so that is because when you know a demon's name, you can then use the letters of his name to create the sigil and then use the sigil to control the demon. You could also use a sigil to summon angels or use them against people or enemies. It's a little bit like manifesting. There are 3 types of sigils: permanent, chaotic, and temporary. Today we're going to do a chaos sigil, and that's one that you destroy almost immediately. And the act of destroying it is what charges the sigil. You could think of the sigil as almost being like a charm. A chaos sigil is mostly used on your personal self. It's to bring intention, to draw intention to your personal self as opposed to the outer world. An example of that would be if you struggle with depression and you want to manifest positivity and you want to try to suppress the depression, you might want to do a sigil for depression. So when you do a sigil, it's not a word. You want to first come up with a phrase. So with depression and your wish or will to not be depressed, you might use the phrase, I am not depressed. You want to phrase it in a way that it is current and present because you want your intentions to also be current and present. So what you do is you write your phrase down on your paper. I have a lot of anxiety and a lot of internal struggle. So mine is going to be I am at peace. So you want to write down your letters, the words, and then cross out your vowels and any repeated letters. And you then want to use these letters to create your symbol. One of the reasons that we change the phrase into a symbol is because a phrase is very surface, for lack of phrasing. A phrase is what it is. You could construe it to mean something, but generally it is how you read it. I am not anxious, if you were to look at that, would typically create the same mental image in your head over and over again. It's not very broad, it's very contained. When you take those words and letters and you put them into a symbol or a form of art, it becomes very open and broad and up for interpretation. You can explore your symbol and you can explore your intentions more without being tied down to the actual phrase. This symbol might trigger other feelings inside of you to help draw these intentions in and help push the negativity of what you're trying to get rid of out. After you've created your symbol, you then want to decide how you're going to charge it. Chaos symbols are charged in the way in which they are disposed of. There are 3 common ways to charge a chaos symbol. You can eat it, melt it, or burn it. Today we're going to burn it. I happen to have a cauldron, which is a fire-safe container. So it's raining outside, so I will be using my cauldron today to charge my sigil. Some other ways you could do it: eating. You could take your symbol and carve it into a piece of meat. I use potatoes because it's pretty smooth and you can use your finger, which is tactically pleasing. And then you just eat your potatoes while thinking about your intentions and manifesting your will. The third most common way, which I also really like the idea of, is to carve your symbol onto a candle and then burn it. And then as your sigil is melting away, you imagine your manifestation coming into you and the negativity coming out of you. Right, so you grab your piece of paper. It doesn't have to be anything fancy because remember, you're going to burn this. But I also don't subscribe to altar cloths or anything. I think a big part of being pagan is being a minimalist and relying on nature and natural elements. So I tend not to be very materialistic. If I had the capabilities or the know-how, I would have made my paper. I also like to use things that I find in nature or that I make myself because I like the connection that I feel to the object as opposed to going and buying something. But anyways, like I said before, I have a lot of internal struggle and anxiety. So my phrase that I'm going to work with to make my sigil is going to be, I am peaceful. And like I mentioned, you want to make sure to phrase your intention in the present because you want it to be present and you want it to be current. Next, you want to cross out any vowels that you have. And then once you've done that, you want to cross out any repeating letters. And in this case, our only repeating letters are A's, which are already crossed out because they're vowels. So then we can see that the letters we have left are M, P, C, whoop, my pen clicked in, C, F, and L. In my experience, it doesn't matter if you use uppercase or lowercase or if you mix them up. I've never heard or read any information for either. I am a big believer in intent, and as long as your intent is good, then your energy will be good, and it's your intention that really matters. So now let's go on to making our symbol. You do not need to use the letters in order that they are. So if the F was really sticking out to me and I wanted to start with the F, I can. It doesn't matter. However, I do like the M. It's a good base. It's a good symmetrical shape. So I'm going to start with the M, and then I think I'm going to have the P come down, and maybe I'm also going to turn that into the L and have the F come off the M and wrap the whole thing up in a C. I was thinking about earlier that if I liked the symbol enough, I might do a permanent sigil and maybe carve that into a necklace or paint it onto a stone or something. But there is the symbol that I am going to use. I have my cauldron, and like I said, I'm a wicked charm nut. This is actually the skull of one of my goats that passed away, and I low-key regret committing to burning my sigil because I made this candle, and it would have been really effective, I think, to carve my sigil onto a candle I made and then used it to burn, to melt away my sigil. So my compromise is that I will use the candle to light my sigil to put in my cauldron. So I did change my sigil slightly. I like this one a little better, and I will put it on a necklace. So before you charge your sigil, you just want to like sit with it for a minute and really think about your intention. And the more specific you can make it, like if you can kind of hone it down to one or two things instead of like a list that's like 5 things long, it'll be more effective because it won't be so scattered. So you just want to like sit with it and really think about your intention and imagining it happen however that looks to you. I like the phrase warm and buttery. I use it when I do tarot too. I tell people to shuffle the cards until they're warm and buttery. I'm super handsy with my objects and charms. I don't care for touching other people, but I really like charms and stuff like that. So when you've sat with your sigil for a bit and you've really thought about your intentions, you want to go ahead. I also just want to point out real quick that you can never be too careful with fire, so I do have the lid for my cauldron. In case something happens, I can immediately suffocate the fire. So you just want to think about your intentions and think about your goodwill and think about the things that make you happy and how you're going to accomplish this. You're going to put it in your cauldron and let it go. Just think of it leaving your body. Breathe it in. Push it out. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. And that's it. Okay, so there is a very brief tutorial on what a sigil is and how to make one or use one, and an incredibly brief and vague history on them. If this is something that you're interested in, then I recommend further researching it for your own. I recommend doing this if you have younger kids that have experienced a trauma, especially the eating or the candle melting. It's a good way for them to visualize it because kids have a hard time expressing themselves verbally sometimes, and anyone who's traumatized is going to have a hard time, and I can't imagine being a traumatized kid and having to explain that to someone. So this would give them a good opportunity to write it down and think about it, and not really be asked any questions or asked to explain themselves, and they can watch it burn and they can watch it go away. And what that does subconsciously is it dials it down in their head. Now, I'm not saying it's a fix-all, it's a cure-all, but, you know, every step is a step, no matter how small. And I think it's worth a shot if you have kids that you might want to consider this. If you have any questions, like I said, I'm super open to discussing it. Go ahead and drop your comments below. And until next time, bye.